Thanks for tuning in. I'm JJ. I'm your community and education lead here at Softr. I'm here with James, one of our product managers, responsible for leading the actual build on this conditional forms. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. Feel free to leave your location in the chat where you're dialing in from today. Love to see where all of you guys are from around the world. And while we wait for everyone, just like a couple of minutes here, James, why don't you talk a little bit about conditional forms? This has been like in the works for quite a while now. Let's talk about that journey and kind of how we got here.
Hey everyone, nice to meet you all. I'm James, one of the senior product managers here at Softr. So as you know, it's been a bit of a whirlwind journey for us. This is something that's been hotly requested for quite a while now. It took some time to build as well. Like no surprise that there is a whole company is built around form products, and super stoked that we were able to turn something around within a matter of just this year, which is exciting and a huge effort for the team. But yeah, as you know, we are able to manage some pretty significant parts of what is required for a form builder. So we'll really be focusing on the conditional form aspects. But of course, there are plenty improvements to come. So hopefully everyone finds some value early on. We can go through a few examples and talk through the new form. So very excited to have this out and to have everyone here. Seems equally as excited as I am that this is built. Thanks, JJ.
Yeah, this has been one of the most requested features, if not the most requested feature on our roadmap. It's been in the works for a little bit now. Really excited to bring it home. I also put out a poll. If you guys have a chance, fill in that poll. Let us know where you're at in your software journey. It just helps us kind of tailor make this content for you today in this event, just to make it a little bit more applicable for you. Generally, we are going to be working through a couple different scenarios of how you can use conditional forms, the more advanced features for them, and how you can use them in scenarios to benefit you. We'll talk about visibility options within forms. We'll talk about logic, branching between forms, generally just creating a good user experience with forms, digesting that information and whatnot. It looks like we have about so far a handful just getting started, and then the rest intermediate experts, kind of a 50-50 crowd here, James. So we'll hit it from both sides. Don't worry, guys. You're in good hands. And also really appreciate you all tuning in today from all over the world. We have Charlotte, North Carolina. We have France. We have Minnesota. We have California. We have Africa. Toronto. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. So if you have any questions throughout the event today, put it in the chat. I'll be helping to answer everything. We can also bring the questions on stage, answer them live. The goal here is really to introduce you to forms, but also answer your questions about how you can build with forms. What are good form examples? How you could integrate these into your apps to, really benefit your apps and your clients and so much more. So, James, are you ready to get started?
Let's do it, JJ.
All right, James, why don't you share your screen and walk us through the first application that we're going to be talking through today, which is a vendor application. And so the scenario for this would be if you are a venue and you have events that you are holding at your app at your venue, you can allow people or vendors to apply to be vendors to those specific events. All right, James, it's all you.
Awesome. So everyone can see my screen. This is an events app, as JJ was saying, and the idea is to be able to manage vendors through a portal. So the mock events here are all softer type conferences, which hopefully one day we'll have in the future.
Woo!
Yeah. So the idea is that you can apply to be a vendor at these events. So you can think of a vendor as someone who runs a stall and sells or showcases a product. So the idea is we want to apply, you kind of click through and you've got a software vendor application. So as you can see, all looks kind of well and good. With this example, it's somewhat pre-built, but I want to showcase some of the aspects of the new block. So we'll start with looking at the basic kind of mechanics of how we build. Some of it's built already, but I want to kind of go through, add a bit more to it, show you some various things. So right now I'm in a preview, but I'll jump right over to Software Studio. So here you can see that this is our app. So just before this, to get there, I'm sure you'll realize it's called conditional form for now, but in the future, we're going to think about having some form presets. And essentially that'll just be pulling out these form layouts, which is a big kind of differentiator for us. It allows you to kind of templatize a lot of what you've um, so a lot of like good kind of design layouts. So we've got a few. We'll get into that a bit later on though. So because we've got a few beginners here, I think probably best just to start with the data source. So I can restart here. So the idea is, where would you like to send your form responses to? So when a user fills out a form, you want to be able to send those responses to your data source or to various other places. So because it's software, let's start with connecting to a data source. So the idea is you just select data source and then you select one of the data sources that you previously added, or you can add another data source here. So I've obviously already got this set up. Um, so I'm just going to go ahead and connect
There we
to
go.
what
Smart
I've had
hangman.
set up already. Awesome. And that's for the beginners here, that's kind of as basic and as straightforward as it gets for connecting to your data source. And that's kind of all that's required to this step. But let me jump over into our
The actual
Airtable
data
base
data
to,
source.
yeah, so you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like. So as with any kind of connection to Airtable or your database, all you need is a base and some tables and some fields to be able to map to. So this is the specific table that we would send vendor applications to. So they're the fields that we'd want to map to our form here. So as you can see, we've got contact name. JJ thankfully has already provided us a response. We've got email, business name, and a bunch of different types of fields. So as with any other block with a form, all you have to do is kind of set up your Airtable base and table as you normally would. Add some fields, and then you jump into mapping those fields back into Softr. So I
And
think that
James, it looks like you have 2 different, tables here. You have the events and the vendors. And then do you have any relationships between the 2?
yes, and yes. So events, as you can see, these are what you saw on the events page in the software app. So these are the mock events that I've created. And yeah, so the events table pulled across that data, and there is a related, like a relation to them. So here you'll be able to connect your application to a specific event. So um, you haven't done it there, but you can select when going through the form, we'll add a section that allows you to select an event, and that will create a relationship between you, the
Is
vendor, and also the event.
Yeah, is that using a linked record field type?
Yes, linked record field type. So
Oh,
as you can see for beginners here, we've got a record here, a vendor application, and the idea is you link to another record. Once you do that, you can it's like I showed you that example that you would select vendors and that would pull across their primary key of the vendors table here. So that gives you a clear relationship between events and vendors.
yeah, easy to manage as well. It's automated, so it's a good way to have your 2 tables come together into, one, pulling those relationships.
Exactly, exactly. Really strong point of Airtable and good way to get the most out of your build with software. All right. So let's jump back to the form. Hey, so what we've done is we've selected a destination. That's kind of all sorted. Nothing to worry about further there. And then I'll show you some of these form layouts. So as I said, great way to um, build a form based off great form design already. So these were designed by our lead product designer, Eka, and give you a way to showcase a great form without having to, manually wrangle too much of a UI or design of the form. So this is a great aspect of software in that we help you get half the way with the design. So there are a few options here. We've got a centered form, um, half image, as you saw. We've also got a layout with big text. Now, big text has some additional elements to it. So it has its own title and subtitle. So for this example, we might want to call it, vendor application. I would love to have you as a vendor. Please apply. something like that. And you can adjust the position of that text. You can align that text however you like. Um, you can adjust the size of that, and also do cool things like adjust the color as well. That maybe it's not the best color here, but just as an example, um, that's kind of something that you would do. So big text layout is really kind of cool. But let's not use that one today. We've also got an image. So difference between image and half image is this image will kind of take up, a smaller area on the page. You might want to use it for a logo or somewhat, or something similar. And the last and cool one is a video. So the idea with a video is that you can paste in a link from, say, YouTube, and then people can click on it and play it. So really cool way to be able to showcase, a bunch of different really well built form design templates, or layouts as we call them, as kind of a starting point for you to share your form on your app. So let's get started. I might add back an image here. Say the way to do that is just this little image icon down here. You want to add an image, and I should have one ready.
Perfect.
Awesome. That'll just take a second. Great. All right. So that looks good.
All right.
Will it look good? Will it look good? There it is.
Perfect.
Awesome. All
It's a big
right.
image.
So it's a vendor application form, and we've got a nice little picture of a fruit store, I think it is, or some market vendor. You get the idea. All right, awesome. So let's jump over. So actually, before I do it, I just want to cover off. There's a few kind of components here. So buttons, and also if you've used Softr before, we have on form submit. I'll come back to buttons later, but for the kind of the newbies here. So on form submit, so a user can only submit once. If you toggle this on whilst you're on a details page, so specifically this at the moment only works if you've added a form to a details page, you can require that a logged in user can only submit once. So this is useful, if you only want, vendors to apply to a single event once. That would be a good example of why you would toggle that on. But it's just in general, good way to kind of control that, users aren't submitting multiple applications as that might not be necessary. A success message. So this will display at the bottom left of your screen once a user has submitted that form. So I built a message here already. So application successfully submitted. You can adjust that, and customize that message whichever way you like. And then finally, you have the action. So what happens after a user submits a form? And you've got similar examples as to what you could do elsewhere with Softr. So do nothing, open external URL and open page. In future, we want to think about doing things like taking you directly to a details page, cool things like that, or passing through that information and kind of pre-filling some other aspect on the page. I think those aspects would be really cool as for future improvements. But for now, you've got these three options. So open an existing page, open a URL, or do nothing. So today we're just going to open an existing page. We'll just take people back to, so on the home page, I've got events. We'll just take people back to events, um, and that'll be that. And you also have, again, for the new players here, the embed block. So this will allow you to embed the Softr form block kind of wherever you like, whether it be externally in a platform, or wherever. So that's the settings page mostly. Key things to just think about here is first thing is you need to set up your destination. And once you do that, set a layout, and then you should roughly be kind of good to go. Come back to more of the advanced stuff later on. So for now, let's jump over to questions. So as you can see, I've pre-built a few things already here. And what I really wanted to cover in this section is just steps, and also sections. So what is a step versus a section? So I'm hovering over the canvas right now, and the entire kind of form element you're seeing in that container is a step, essentially. So that'll be referring to this first step here. So I've got a bunch of things set up. Um, and what will be held within a step is a section. So you think of step as the top level kind of component, and then within steps you have sections. So you have the ability to have one section or multiple section, essentially. Um, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to add a section. I think as you can see the fields we have on the form, there is no way you need to specify um, an event. So I think that's probably the first thing we want to be able to do in terms of adding to this form. So how the way I'm going to do that is because I want a specific header for that section, I'm going to create a new section. So if you saw how I did that, um, there's a little kind of button down here. Again, this is all within a step. You can add multiple sections. So I'm going to add another section here, um, and I'm going to expand that. So this will give us a pre-built field. So if you're familiar with Softr, these are just mapping fields like usual. For the new players here, this is the ability to, this gives you the ability for you to map a data source field to one of your form inputs. So what I'm going to do is start with, and the first one never has the display fields. Going to start with a display field. So as I said, I wanted a heading for this section. So as you can see, vendor information is a heading. I want to add a heading for the next section I want to add. If you scroll all the way down, we'll have this cool new addition to the form block, and that's display fields. So I'm going to add a display field, and that's going to automatically append to the bottom of the step. But again, it's a new section. And I'm going to call this, what will I call this? I'll just call this event. Um,
Collection.
event selection. Great one, JJ.
Mm.
Cool. So that's the header. And I think probably best designed to add some text as well. So if I head down to display fields, we also have this text option here. So that'll allow me to provide some text underneath the header. So I was just grabbing some text I already had, and I'm going to paste that into here. Okay, so we have a heading and some text for our new section. So event selection, apply to be a vendor at one or more events, only one application required. Okay, cool. But now the important part. So I want users to be able to select the event that they want to be a vendor for. So for me, that'll be a drop down. If you remember, or definitely not, I can jump back to Airtable to show you that we were talking about this linked record. And that'll be, yeah. So this link record is going to tie your vendor application to an event. So as you can see, it's a linked record. It's linked to vendors. And the idea of this is I want to map this field onto the section that I'm creating just now. So users can select there.
So that will give you a
So
list of
that'll
the
be
events available.
exactly. So because there's a linked record, best software field for that would be a drop down. All we have to do is select the input type, and then we're going to map it to that exact field. So event. And with Airtable, also possible with Smart Suite, we have this really cool option of syncing with data source. So that'll automatically pull across these options for you, and that'll display in the dropdown. So with the dropdown, you also have a label, or any field rather. You will also have a label and also a placeholder. So the label appears above the input, and the placeholder appears within it. And I'm just going to say, select events you like to be a vendor for.
Awesome.
Awesome.
James, why don't we
So
stay real quick for a couple questions before we move on to that logic? Sound good?
yeah, sounds good.
Cool. So we have a question here. Is there a limit to the number of questions or sections that can be configured?
No, there is not a limit. I would say only thing to consider is just the end experience for your users. So um, you probably want like an informal limit. So people might not want to see a form with, 50 50 sections on one step kind of thing. So no enforced limit, but just consider the end experience, I would say.
Yeah, I'd also maybe add in some context. If you are asking a lot of questions, all of these form submissions happen in one entry. So meaning you have to submit to send everything. And so maybe if your user leaves or like their connection is interrupted, they could possibly lose all that details if the form is really long. So maybe you want to keep it as smaller would be advantageous as well. Yeah, James? Good
That's
balance?
right. That's right. Yeah.
Great. All right, our next question. Thank you, Joel, for that one. Heidi, can you pre-fill questions with information? How about this one, James?
Yeah, it's a great question, Heidi. It's not possible yet. So we do recognize that that's quite a powerful form feature, and it is on our roadmap of improvements, but not yet, unfortunately. But we hear you, and it's something that we want to be able to deliver with this new block at some point in the near future. So stay tuned for that one. But right now, there is no pre-filling possible.
Awesome. And then we're gonna come back to Joel on this one. I think we're gonna get to it soon, but can you show a section depending on the previous answer, James?
Yes, you can. We'll get to that very shortly. But that is possible.
Awesome. So that's all the questions we have now. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to put it in. Otherwise, James, back to the show.
Awesome, guys. Okay, so only thing that I might want to change here is probably just the heading to match the heading size of vendor information. So there we go. We've added a new section to our first step. And if we wanted to preview what that looks like, I'll quickly show you. Um, so we go back to the form. Cool. Then information's there. We scroll down and we've got a new section. And you can select from any of the events. So that's how that would work. I'm adding a new section. Cool. So as I said, we've got steps and we've got sections. So steps are kind of a really cool way to, again, minimize information that people see on the page. And opposed to a section, a step will kind of appear as something completely new. So you'll see it now when click on step 3, you'll see the canvas on the left kind of update. Awesome. So that's kind of a really cool aspect of editing forms with Softr. So as you're editing here on the right, you'll be able to see a preview of what you're building on the left. So what you're looking at now is step 3. But if you realize we're missing step 2,
Hmm.
so I'm going to show you what creating a step looks like. So down the bottom here, we've got this big button called Add a Step. So we want to do that. Cool. So we have a step. Um, you can name the step internally. So this is not a public facing name, but it helps you kind of organize your form from your perspective. So you know which step is which and how to arrange specific things. So I'm going to call this step 2 and I'm going to call it products and services. Cool. So this will be that too. And I want to be able to drag that. So this is a cool aspect as well. You can drag steps um, as long as there is no dependent logic, and we'll get to what that means later. But if there is a logic kind of dependent on, step 3 and that moving step 2 to before step 3 breaks that, we might prevent you from reordering in some cases. But you'll be able to see that once you get an example running yourself, I think. Awesome. So we've created step 2, and as I said, comes with a section. So steps are the big container, and sections are contained within steps. So I'll probably just keep reiterating that. But I feel like that's it'll be fairly obvious at some point. But of course, there's always a learning curve with new products. Awesome. So with this step, always good design as well to have a heading here. So as I said, we call this products and services. I'll just give the same heading for our users. products and services. Awesome. I'm going to add some text. So again, these are display fields. They're not mapped to the data source. They're just purely visual, and gives you the ability to add some information to your form and help guide your users. So I'm going to say provide details on the products you intend to showcase. Awesome. Okay. So this is just going to have a couple fields that we're going to map here. And first one is going to be rich text. So the idea with this step is we want a vendor to be able to provide some information on the specific products or services that they want to showcase at the event at an vendor store at a vendor store. Um, so I've got a field in Airtable that asks for which products and services. So it's this one here. So detailed description of product services. Something else also just to highlight as well is we've introduced compatibility mappings for input fields as well. So previously you might have seen this on list blocks or details blocks. But the idea here is that we're able to specify which fields in your database are compatible with the Softr field. So if we go back to Airtable, for example, and if we look at this detailed description, you can see in Airtable that the field is long text and we've enabled rich text formatting. So that's why in Softr, when I selected rich text as an input type, only this field is displaying as it's compatible with the rich text type. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And you can see the canvas reflects and this rich text kind of top heading here, which allows you to, add some formatting within your response field, which is really cool for some use cases of forms.
Very
So
cool.
we're going to call this.
James, while you're doing that, we have a question that came in. It says, "Can you access or update other tables in a given step?" And I know the answer to this one, but I'll let you go for it.
So yeah, as JJ hints at, it is heavily requested, and unfortunately not possible yet. But again, we know there are a lot of improvements we can make to this form, and that again is another one that we see happening in the near future as a big significant improvement. So for those who aren't aware of the use case, say you have you're filling out a vendor form, for example, and maybe you want to create an event at the same time, or the event that you want to apply for isn't in the drop down list that we have available. The idea there would be you can then click into a sub form, create an entry for an event first, and then get back to completing the vendor application form. So that's kind of cool. We don't really have an internal name for it yet, but it's kind of creating another linked record through a sub form. So that'd be the use case. Super powerful and definitely something we want to look to do. But yeah, unfortunately not possible yet with this new block.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So let me get back to this. So a label, add a placeholder. Cool. So that's the first section. That's the first field that's been mapped. So here we want to get a detailed description of products and services. And the next one I think is just going to be another drop down. So here is going to lead into some of the core conditional logic that we get to. So this question is going to be about do you require a boost? So boost required. It'll be a simple yes, no. As you can see, the options sync from the data source. And the label I'll use is what I pulled across. Do you wish to request a standalone boost to showcase on your products or services? And we can just say yes or no as a placeholder text.
Nice.
Awesome. Okay. So this is step to build. So as you can see, there's a bunch of fields. You can always um, close these containers just to get a bit more space on the page there. As you can see, step two is built. It's got one section. Again, you can add multiple sections, but this step just has one section, and it's a completely new step. So to show you what that looks like, that's step one, that's step two that we just built. So that's how you build a new step. And let's just jump across to preview. I can show you what moving to a next step looks like.
Awesome. We also have a question that came in once we get done with this preview here.
Sure. So I'll just fill this in quickly. I'll show you what that looks like. Just use my details, select an event, and you can see this next button pop up. Um, and there we go. So I
Perfect.
click next. We saw a new step. So
As
that
Kelsey was
was
saying, steps are almost like new pages, with
exactly.
form.
Yeah. Exactly, exactly. So, few things on that. So the layout, the form layout you picked will kind of remain the same. So the image will be there. If you select a big text, the text will still be there. But as you navigate from previous to the next, it'll essentially be like a new page. And important thing to note here as well is whilst you're submitting or completing the form, going back to previous will save your answers as well. So
Very
your
nice.
progress won't be lost whilst you're stepping back and forth between steps, which is an important addition.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, James, we have a question from one of our experts, Julian. I think the question here is, are we going to have like a radio button option, like instead of the drop down, can we just select one of those buttons, for a option choice?
Yes. So that is an improvement we want to make in the very short term, actually. So there are a bunch of improvements that I'm yet to prioritize, but that's a big one. So for everyone else, what Julian's referring to is here's a drop down, you have a couple options. But a radio button is like, remove the drop down and just show yes or no and just be able to click somewhere on the UI, yes or no. So that's not possible yet, but yes, it is an improvement we want to make in the short term, Julian.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Should we get into logic?
Yeah, let's do it. So I've shown you how to create steps and sections, but the really cool aspects of this new block is its logic. So just something before we get there. So you might have noticed this already, but everything I've showed you up to this point is available on the free and basic plan. And as we jump over to logic, that'll be available on professional and above plan. So just wanted to make that clear for everyone. Um, but let's do it. So with steps and sections, both being visual new elements, you also have the ability to add step and section logic. So as I said, I wanted to create this step two, so we should create some branching logic, so step logic after this step. So the way to do that is you've got a few ways. So we've got this logic tab here. That'll take you straight across our instance. We were expanded or editing step two at the time, it'll take me straight to step two. There are some other ways to get there though. So if we go back to questions, you'll see this little logic icon as well. And again, that'll take you directly to step two. Or say at this point you wanted to add some logic to step one, you can click the icon here and it didn't do it at that point. We'll fix that, but the idea is that it'll take you to directly to step one logic. Okay, but for now, I wanted to add logic to step two. So we'll do that. Let me zoom in a bit for you guys. So just on the canvas as well, there's a few buttons you can kind of click. So this one here will allow you to pull a canvas around. As I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with kind of workflow builders. Um, you can expand and also change to just that regular mouse
Yeah,
icon.
and by the way, this is an entirely new interface for us if you haven't noticed already, and this lays the ground for a lot of future advancements in Software 2, if you think about a world with workflows and many other things that can come, and so this conditional forms, like with the logic, has added a lot of the groundwork for a lot of the future innovations that we'll have here as well.
Yes, yes. It is alluding to some very exciting work that will happen at some point. So yeah, this is a good first step for us in many regards. Awesome. Okay, so step two. So the idea with step logic is you want to be able to determine where to take users next. So as you can see, there's a few options. So after step two, you've got step three, you've got step four. and you've also got the final submit. So the idea here is we've got a vendor application and people have provided information about their products and services. And we've got a specific question here that says, do you request a booth or not? So the answer, the options to that are yes or no. So what we want to try to do here is take users to booth requirements if they selected yes, or take people directly to agreement if they selected no. So as you can see on the right, this is where you configure the logic. And we start with a default case. So the default case is just this arrow that you can see here. So by default, step two will always go to step three, boot requirements. And that's kind of what you can adjust here. To adjust that first, we need to add a secondary path though, and that is add a path. So what we want to do here is add a path. And as I said, so we've already got a branch that's taking users from step one, step two to step three boost requirements. But we want to create a path for users who don't require a boot. So let's select where users want to go. We can say directly to agreement. And the way that we would then do that is we've got a regular kind of conditional filter here. So those who are familiar with Softr, if not, this element is pretty prevalent throughout the app. And you have some options here. So logged in user, that'll pull from user attributes. And we've got form answer as well. Just to call out, you won't see it here. But on details pages, if you've added a form to a details page, you'll be able to use the details page record in question
Oh, cool.
um, as a filter as well. Yeah. But for today, we're going to use a form answer. So I think this will probably be one of the more popular use cases or options for people building forms. But as I said, I want to reference this question here. So do you wish to use a boot? So I'm going to click form answer. And you're going to see the steps and sections and each field mapped within. And there you're going to be able to select anything prior to the step. So again, users won't have provided answers to anything after step two at this point. So that's why you're seeing all form responses for step two and above. And so I can see that this is the question that I want to add. Do you wish to request a booth? And I want to say that is no.
And just a
And
quick,
that's as easy as that.
tip here, it is case sensitive between your values of Airtable and here. So if you have a capitalized NO, make sure the capitalized NO here is the same just to keep that linking well.
Great tip. Great tip. Thanks, JJ. Awesome. So that's an idea of how you create a path. So um, as you can see, cool little interaction here, but this is the conditional path that we've just created. So we call this path one. And again, this path on the right here, that is the default path down there. But what was created is a scenario where if users answer that last question, do you wish to request a booth? If they answer yes, they'll go to booth requirements. And if they answer no, what we've just added, they'll go directly to the agreement. So they'll skip that complete step. So let's go and preview this so I can show you what it looks like. And I can probably, no, can't skip that.
You can make
Can't
these
skip
required or not as well, should you want to have
Yes.
unrequired fields.
Yes. Good point. Thank you, JJ. I'll just say, all right. So question is here. So if we click no, that should take us directly to the agreement step. And it has. Awesome.
Beautiful.
Always good when the demo
By the way, that add
runs.
signature thing is really neat for the ease.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah.
Mm,
Cool. And so if I change the answer to yes, that should take me to booth requirements.
yes.
Awesome. So that works as expected. Awesome.
So a couple
So
things,
that's,
James, if you don't mind, get in real quick. We have a quick question
yeah,
from Julian, and then we could talk about some of the other options here. So Julian's asking, and it's a great question. Can we exit any users before submitting? So in case they don't want to store any database and the input they gave, and like a second editing to the scenario without the date creation in the Airtable. So I think what's asking here is if they were to leave the form, can we save that data in like a partial way? And let me know if I didn't understand this question the right way.
Yeah, so no, unfortunately not. So users will have to go all the way to submit on the final page to be able to store any information at the moment. But yeah, it's something we've heard a couple times, and I think we'll consider if that is like a big request for users. I know it's definitely helpful in cases of people accidentally leaving and losing their progress. So I think conceivably something we do at some point in the future. But yeah, unfortunately, saving your answers before hitting submit, unless you're clicking like previous and next, it won't be possible. So if I close this tab, for example, those responses wouldn't be partially saved in your database.
Gotcha. All right. So a follow up to that, because I didn't fully understand it. The next thing is, can there be multiple endings, or does it need to all come together for the same happy ending with the submit button?
Right. Yeah, good point. So at this point, it's only a single ending is permitted. So
Okay.
as you can see at the bottom here, just a single submit. But again, that is something that we want to think about introducing as well. So with a new form builder, there's definitely a lot we can do. And this essentially providing us kind of a good foundation. And we've covered off a few kind of key aspects with the conditional logic, but there are plenty of places that we can improve upon. And that's definitely something that we want to consider. But right now, there's just a single submit, and that'll live on the last step. So there's only one ending that you can have at the moment.
Awesome. And then two more things. Can the user cancel and leave the form? Like, how would that cancellation go? Would it just they hit the back button? Do they hit the previous? How does that go?
Yeah. So no native way to kind of cancel. It'd just be navigating somewhere else at the moment. You could add a block to a page that is a button. Like if you just have BTA buttons as a single block below the form, you can add a cancel at any time button. But there's no native way to do that with the form. So the way to do that would just be navigating somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or closing the tab.
And then another question here from Kelsey. Can we conditionally create an Airtable record? So let them fill out the form either way, but only update the Airtable record if they answer a certain way. And I believe what the answer here is all of the data that they fill out in the form is going to be sent to Airtable, but that depends on the path that they take. So if they don't take that path and or they don't answer those questions, the values will be blank there.
Yeah, totally. So the easiest way to probably show it here is if you have, for example, a branch that takes people directly to agreements or steps out these brief requirements, it's all linked to the same Airtable table. Um, but for those who've skipped the brief requirements, there's going to be no data for these fields that are mapped in Airtable. So there isn't like when you say only add Airtable fields and like conditionally add Airtable fields, that technically is not possible, but you can have them bypass this step or not fill out a specific section, or you can not require specific fields, meaning that that data won't be there for that record when you submit in Airtable.
Gotcha.
So I think, yeah, the technicality I think of what you're asking is not possible. But kind of the outcome I think is still the same. So you can have people not have data for this if they don't require these requirements, or if they do, then there'll be data for that in the Airtable record.
Awesome. All right. So a couple other things, James. So it looks like we
Yeah,
do need to finish up this logic to get them all going back to the same area. And then we also need to show the logic for visibility within a step as well.
that's
Right.
right.
And then a
That's right.
time check. We got only about 10 more minutes left here, too. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna quickly show you section logic, and then we can move on.
Cool.
All right. So you'll be able to see here in the visual builder. So another great aspect of this is you can see the fields. So that's another really cool aspect of Softr's visual builder. Um, and as you can see, step 4 has this section called booth fee. And I want to hide that if users have not selected that they want to use a booth. So it makes sense. You don't want to use a booth. Okay, there's not going to be a fee associated that you have to pay. So the way to do that would be simply selecting section logic. So you can do that here, and that'll open a
Yeah.
new panel. And just so you're aware, if you wanted to do that from within the questions field as well, um, each section will be able to have an icon here. So again, steps, sections, there's step logic and there's section logic. And section can have a single field. So if you just wanted to hide a single field, then that's the way you do that. Um, I was actually showing you this one. So this will be the section here. So boost fee, and that'll have the ability to have section, and that's only got a single field. We can jump across from that way as well. It'll take us right there. So I'll just zoom in some more for everyone. Cool. So we're already here, and I'm going to select booth. So the idea with section logic is it works differently to step logic. So step logic will take you to specific pages, and section logic is going to refer to the visibility of this section. So you'll have a few options here. So always visible, only visible when, and hidden when. So I want to add a condition here that starts with only visible when. And I said I wanted to only show this if the user has intended they wanted a booth. So again, I'm going to refer back to that same question. So do you wish to request a standalone booth? And I'm going to say that is yes. So cool. That's done again. So as you can see, the icon, gotta fix this. So that icon is popping up, and you can see that there's logic added to that section. And so this section and that field should only be visible when a user wants to request a boost. And so if you can go
Awesome. And now
do that
you can
again.
upload photos within, these inputs as well, correct?
Um, you can, yes, you can. So the way to do that, it'd be to add a field.
Yep.
So if I just go to the last step here, you would want to be able to add a file
There you go. Perfect.
as an input field.
Yeah.
Then you would just map that to if it's a table and attachment field, or whichever is the image type field in your data source. And that would be possible. I haven't connected one yet, so
Sure.
I'll show you easily. But yeah, that'd be the way to do it. So if you want to use this to add an image, you just use this file type and you map it to an image field in your data source.
Yeah, so I think, the follow-up question to that from a couple of people is, can we send the user an email with the submissions afterward? And so natively, this isn't possible yet, but you can do a simple Airtable automation or some other automations essentially saying when a new record is added, send an email and then to grab the information of the new record and email it to the recipients.
That'd be the best way to do it. So I would always recommend sending your data to a data source so you have a store of that. And you do technically have the ability to send them directly to an
Interesting.
email address, as you said. So that is possible. And it's good for some use cases. So I could send all responses to my address and that'll appear through your email,
But
whichever
that's
one
not
you
actually saving
select.
to a database at that point.
Exactly,
Got
exactly. So it really depends on the use case. In most circumstances, I would highly recommend sending to a data source, and as JJ said, then creating an automation based off that data hitting that data source.
awesome.
But that is possible.
Fantastic.
And
Oh, did we lose our data source?
we do
Oh, that's right, 'cause we switched.
connect it back up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there we go.
cool. So I'll remove that field.
I love how that automatically reconnects everything and you don't lose all the connections.
Yeah, it never used to be like that. It was a huge pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good pain point for us to fix. So let me get to showing the section logic. All right. So again, it relates to this question. So I'm going to say start with no. So no, and then
Agreement.
there it is.
Perfect.
Um, no booth fee.
Mm,
And if we go back to yes, this is also going to show me the step logic. So I'll see this step,
perfect.
quickly show out, and then I see the booth fee.
Great.
So that's a perfect example of section logic.
Awesome,
Also,
James.
so those are the big main mechanics of the new conditional form. The only other big difference is, and you can explore this yourself, is the styles tab for all our new blocks. So you'll notice that there's a fair bit of difference here in terms of what you can style and how you can style it. But highly recommend going off and exploring these styles yourself. Super powerful. But yeah, thank you. That's a good solid run through of our new form block and how to use conditional logic.
Yeah, you can use these for so many different scenarios. A new team member onboarding, new sales request, RFPs. There's so many different ways you can use this. And matter of fact, we are actually running a conditional forms contest right now. I'm going to link the information to you in here. And so right now we are saying anyone that wants to participate can submit a conditional form for either a use case of a client portal or an internal tool. You'll see the video in that URL below. The video kind of explains everything. But if we're going to select three winners, and then the three winners will be voted on, and the three winners will win a cash prize along with some exclusive swag and other things. So, another great opportunity to get involved with conditional forms. The deadlines for that is May 22nd. Again, follow the link that I just posted in the chat. You can learn more about all the contest rules and whatnot, but you can build so much with it. And it's pretty quick to build, seeing how James just brought us through, so many different steps, conditional logic between the steps and then within the steps as well. Really good job putting this all together, James. And for everyone out there, thank you for your answers, your questions. Hopefully, we were able to answer them all. This is a brand new feature that we just got off the iron early or late, mid last week. And so we have a huge slate of product improvements that we're going to be continuing to make to this. But even without that, what a great feature this is. All the possibilities that it unlocks for your applications, the benefits for your clients. Feel free to continue to send us more feedback for anything else that we can do to improve it. Otherwise, thank you all again for tuning in tonight. We didn't get into additional scenarios. We just didn't have the time for it. But as always, if you have any additional questions, feel free to check us out and our software community. I'll link the URL for that in our description, our chat below. Always feel free to post on our software community. Feel free to hit us up on our social media pages, our roadmap page, wherever you can find us. We take feedback very seriously, and we're building with you in mind every step of the way. So let us know what else we can do to build a great product for you to help your clients take it to the next step. James, thanks for tuning in and showing this all of us tonight. Really appreciate that. And to you all that joined us live from all over the world, thank you again for tuning in. We really appreciate you. And anything else, James, before we head out?
The only plug I'll make is check out our templates. We've got a bunch of new form templates for you to use. So get started with the template. Should make it much easier for you to get started with our new block. So happy building everyone, and thanks so much, J James, for helping running the show.
Yeah, James, where do they find the template? Sorry.
Yeah, so you can either check them out on our website first. So we've got a template landing page, or just directly an app. So if you want to create an app from a template, you can click into our templates library, and you'll see a category called forms, and you'll see a bunch of new templates that you can use. So client intake, referral form, there's employee feedback form. Go check it out. They're all pretty cool. They've been built, designed. They've got the logic already. So great place for you to start and learn how to build a form with Softr.
Great. I just added that link into chat. Otherwise, have a great day, morning, evening, night, wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you next time. See you guys.
Thanks so much, everyone. Bye bye.